Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Hard West. In the previous episode we started A Matter of Time, where we are actually picking up with Cassandra from the previous scenario. Law and Order.
The first boat drifted away from the island. They needed to reach that last one.
And this time I was smart enough to actually take out all of those guys at the starting island so that I wouldn't get sniped from across the map and killed immediately and have to restart the whole scenario again. Do gotta be careful because it seems as though there are enemies guarding the boats. So, gonna want to keep an eye out for that. Yep, see, like right there. Of course not. That sucks. Would have been cool if I could have pulled that off. But I can always do this. Basically, even though that camera wasn't angled right for that, I think it's just a bunch of spikes that shoot up and kill them. Okay, that's everyone. Well, everyone that's our enemy. Let's get out of here.
The final boat was within reach, and any stragglers would be left behind. Ricardo La Fortuna was the Protector's most dangerous rival. His fleet blockaded their ultimate destination. Any vessel that attempted to get by would be blasted out of the water. Cassandra wondered if La Fortuna could be persuaded to let them pass. Hardin told her about a grand poker tournament that La Fortuna was hosting. Joining the game would require a 25,000 peso buy-in.
And we somehow have 3 grand now. Well, more than that. But yes, we now have the Canon Calavera, which is a trinket. Now, that achievement I was talking about before requires the Canon Calavera. What you basically need to do is kill Joaquin Perez with the Canon Calavera in order to get what goes around comes around. Despite you having gotten this in Law and Order, it doesn't unlock as a trinket until this very moment. So, yeah, that's kind of why you're probably going to need two run-throughs of this if you really want to get that achievement. Or you could try to use the scavenger card if you have it until you get the Canon Calavera. But we didn't have it, so it didn't really matter. Now, let's see. Okay, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to... The game would let me close out of here. Going to want to head to... What is it? Adelante? Now, you are going to need your precog powers for this, but if you've been following around... then you'll be able to. Then you should have your precognition ready. Bustling town of Adelante was full of new buildings and prosperous people. The copious construction work in town was sponsored almost single-handedly by Mr. La Fortuna. For the denizens of the Western Territory, La Fortuna was the embodiment of prosperity and modernity. Though she felt awkward about making such a seemingly lowbrow request, Cassandra suggested that they find the local brothel. You need your precog for this, and you need to do this. When Cassandra told Hardin they should find the bordello, his eyes lit with an unsavory glow. She admonished him sternly, insisting this was strictly a business outing. Her head was already starting to ache. It was only a matter of time before it dulled with pain for hours or even days. They arrived at the brothel in time to witness a violent quarrel. An older, flamboyantly dressed woman beating an Indian prostitute with a billy club. Cassandra guessed the older woman was the bordello's madam. Hardin stared at the scene, frozen for a moment, agog. An instant later, Hardin rushed at the madam, landing a full-force punch in the middle of her face with a crunch. As she sprawled on the floor, dazed and screaming, Hardin rushed to the native woman, helping her up. She hugged him as she cried, covering him in kisses in a way that suggested they had more than a passing familiarity with one another. Hardin motioned to Cassandra to get out of sight. She ducked into the nearest back street. Hardin and his native acquaintance joined Cassandra as soon as they could. She wasted no time reprimanding Hardin for attracting the attention of the entire town and doubtless the authorities. Hardin explained that he had no choice. It was his duty to defend Felicia. Apparently they had known each other for some time. Cassandra guessed Hardin was one of her regulars. Felicia apologized for the trouble, but said that without her job she had nowhere to go. Hardin suggested she could join Cassandra's posse, as she was a good shot and good company. Well, I don't see why not. Cassandra knew accepting this woman in the team would attract a lot of attention, but decided to do it anyways. Felicia thanked Cassandra profusely and promised to be a valuable asset to the team. The team returned to the town of Adelante. Let's see. After that, we're going to want to head for Pilgrimage. Cassandra and her companions came across a group of people camping out in the wild. They had numerous tents set up, along with carts and horses. There were wooden crosses and ornate incense holders everywhere they looked. A man wearing priest attire greeted them on behalf of his flock and said his name was K. Elspas. He explained that he was leading these people on a pilgrimage, but that they were currently enjoying a much-needed rest. Cassandra remarked that the beaten paths around the camp suggested they'd been camping there for some time. Elspas winced and admitted in a low voice that Cassandra was right. They weren't resting at all. Actually, they were lost. His map had turned out to be inaccurate. He couldn't bring himself to dash the hopes of so many pilgrims by telling them they had to go back. Thus far, he had been able to convince everyone that they were still on the Kalaka Shrine Trail, while he secretly tried to figure out where it was. Now he was losing hope of ever finding it. Cassandra never heard of the Kalaka Shrine. K. Elspas explained that Kalaka Shrine was a pre-Columbian ritual site said to contain carved figurines of human skulls adorned with Christian symbols, crosses, three-cornered symbols and fish. According to Elspas, the existence of these symbols confirmed that Christianity was the world's sole true religion. Unfortunately, however, the map he'd bought from a merchant in Adelante had proved false. Now he would need to admit his failure and destroy the faith and resolve of his flock. Unless a true map were found, Cassandra finished for him. Elspas nodded fervently. He promised to share his supplies with Cassandra if she found a map. He had heard that the Garcia Pimentel family library might contain clues to the shrine's location. He promised to look. That should recharge. Let's see. There it is. Let's see. Martin Polquera Adelmira Garcia Pimentel was one of the last of the venerable Garcia Pimentel clan, which had flourished in the New World for hundreds of years. Now the family was a shadow of its former glory, but the Garcia Pimentel Library remained the greatest and most complete collection of works detailing the New World and the rise of Mexico. Mame Garcia Pimentel jovially greeted Lydia, as Cassandra had introduced herself, and guessed she was here to see the fabled library. Cassandra nodded, hoping quietly she could find the location of the Kalaka Shrine amid the books. The matron nodded and led them inside. There they were joined by a scrawny figure in clothes that had once been very fine but were clearly showing their wear. Matron Garcia Pimentel said this was her son, Porfirio, and that he would be their guide to the library. Cassandra curtsied, taking a closer look at the young man. On top of a hunched, scrawny body sat a large head with a bulging lump in the middle of his forehead. His skin was mottled and unnatural looking. He inclined his head slightly at all times. She suppressed a shiver. Strange. There's supposed to be an option. I'm certain it'll come back later on. As they walked into the library, Porfirio told Cassandra about various landmarks in the area, spouting an endless stream of historical facts interrupted only by his slight stutter. Although at first he seemed consumed by his study of history, Cassandra soon realized his trembling hands, darting eyes, and blush meant something completely different. He was attempting to court her. In other contexts, it might have been endearing, but she was unsettled by the cold lump she felt in her stomach. Porfirio broke her reflections, asking whether there was anything in particular she would like to hear about. She asked about the what is wrong with me today? She asked specifically about the famous yet mysterious Kalaka Shrine. According to Porfirio, the Kalaka Shrine was the crown jewel of the area's historical attractions, believed to have been built long before the first Europeans set foot in the New World. It contained several painted skull sculptures called Kalakas that inexplicably bore ancient Christian symbols, fish, crosses, and various three-cornered ornaments. The shrine was considered by many as the ultimate confirmation that Christianity was the world's one true religion. There had been a minor military struggle over who controlled it, with the winner doing their utmost to camouflage its position. When they met their downfall, however, its precise location was lost to history. At this last sentence, Porfirio's deformed lips twisted in what Cassandra interpreted as an approximation of a smile. She guessed aloud that he knew so much, she was sure he must know the location. The young man looked away shyly. When Cassandra pressed, he nodded his deformed head in confirmation. He said he would tell Cassandra the location in exchange for a kiss. Okay. If Cassandra has her pre-confidence, you can avoid bloodshed if you choose to kiss Porfirio, but if you don't, the visit will end up in bloodshed no matter what you do. Fighting her revulsion, she brought herself to lay a gentle kiss where a person's cheek would be. At the last moment, Porfirio turned his head and Cassandra found herself kissing his lips. Then he grasped her head to his and forced his tongue into her mouth. Ugh. Weather the ordeal, Cassandra. We need this. She managed to let out some falsely contented murmurs to cloud his judgment. Ugh. He looked at her enamored and awestruck. As Cassandra battled the urge to hold on to her breakfast, he produced a detailed map of the area from a desk drawer and pointed out the exact location of the shrine. He then copied the major landmarks onto a piece of paper and gave it to her. It was more than she could have hoped for. Cassandra's heart sunk when she reached the foyer to find Hardin unconscious on a chase lounge. Lady Garcia Pimentel explained that she had left the group alone with a bottle of brandy and returned to find him like this. She suggested that Cassandra and her friend stay the night and leave the next morning. Cassandra felt a dawning premonition and allowed herself to focus on it. Cassandra felt a great danger emanating from the Garcia Pimentel house that extended far beyond kissing disfigured men. In a blink, she had a vision of herself in a bridal gown that was slick with blood. She blinked, and the feeling passed, leaving a painful throbbing in its place. Ooh. Let's just get out of there. Okay then. Now we can head for the Kalaka Shrine. We have a choice when we get there. If we leave the Kalakas undisturbed, we'll get 3 cards, and Cassandra will receive a +2 to max HP buff, and Hardin will get a +1 to damage buff. But apparently it won't be that useful for this scenario. So, we can actually take the Kalakas and sell them at the pilgrimage to earn 12,000 gold and get 2 cards. Cassandra and her companions arrived at the fabled Kalaka Shrine, built into a cliffside. The pieces of masonry hanging from the entrance indicated that the river had been eating away at the land for some time and was now biting into the actual construction. Getting inside would be quite dangerous. Let's get in there. After struggling with the ropes, the party entered the mouth of the moldy tunnel in complete darkness. This shouldn't be in complete darkness. The floor shuddered with constant vibrations, and there was a clattering sound that sounded like thousands of crustaceans skittering across stone. They then emerged into a bigger room where two narrow rays of light sifted in from the surface. The shrine looked ancient and distinguished, apart from the skulls decorated with Christian symbols that lay everywhere. These must be the Kalakas. Pack them up. Hardin squeezed past Cassandra into the small room and started carefully packing the Kalakas into a sack. All the while, Cassandra looked around for signs of danger. She was almost disappointed not to find any poisoned darts, giant rolling stones, or rabid beasts to punch their crime. Shortly, Hardin reported he was done. Cassandra shrugged at the anticlimactic shrine and decided to leave. They were barely out of the tunnel when the earth beneath their feet trembled and a large section of the cliff fell into the water. The entrance to the Kalaka shrine had collapsed. It would take serious excavation to get back inside. Pilgrims were just where Cassandra had originally found them. K. L. Spas greeted her amiably. He asked whether she had managed to find a map to the shrine. Yes, but the shrine had collapsed. K. L. Spas was visibly shaken. He told of long days spent looking for the shrine and the sadness of his pilgrims. None of them would be able to admire the wondrous glory of the ancient Kalakas, proof of Christianity's supremacy over the religions of the world. Oh boy. Cassandra saw through this deception and chided him for wanting to steal the figures. To Cassandra's surprise, Elspas instantly dropped his act and dried his tears. In hushed tones, he admitted he'd scammed his followers into funding his expedition here. He said that the Kalakas were worth a fortune and he had a buyer lined up. If the Kalakas were lost, however, all his effort would be for nothing. Cassandra mentioned the figures might have been spared from the catastrophe. She wanted to hear what he had to offer. He cast her a look of understanding and smiled slightly. Then he resumed his act full force, falling to the ground, praying loudly, thanking the Lord. He offered 12,000 for the complete set of Kalakas. Let's take it. K. Elspas handed her the agreed-upon sum and took the Kalakas in his own hands, a genuine tear of gratitude in his eye. He walked away, announcing the miracle to his followers. I should probably check the... And inebriation. I might want to get those taken care of. Okay then, now that we have that taken care of, we need to head to the Mexican Army Fort, and then we're going to want to let Hardin stay in the yard. Just gotta find that fort. Wherever... Ah, there it is, right on top of the mountains. The team arrived at a Mexican army stronghold in the Western Territory. The terrain was challenging and progress had been slow. They were grateful for the respite. Hardin offered to buddy up to the guards. He said he'd see what they knew and maybe win some of their money. Cassandra nodded and said she would see what she could learn from the commander. Commander Alberto J. Barbola Barueco greeted Cassandra gallantly and offered refreshments. He excused his humble surroundings, explaining that order was maintained in this region by the private militias of wealthy industrialists such as Ricardo La Fortuna. Consequently, the Mexican military had only a minor presence in this area. Interesting. Let's see. Rumbling noises and jeering. Let's ask this one first. How it was possible for someone like La Fortuna to blockade his competitor's assets? The commander told Cassandra that La Fortuna was a benefactor of the United Mexican States. The government trusted him and gave him many liberties. He explained that the blockade Cassandra had referred to was only a training exercise for his merchant fleet, put on in response to the rise of piracy in the Caribbean. Yeah, right. Rumbling noises and jeering voices from outside caught the commander's attention. He got up from his desk and looked through the window. Cassandra joining him, Hardin was quarreling with a soldier. The commander excused himself, leaving Cassandra in the room alone. Now then. Once he leaves, we're going to want to search his desk. That'll get us 1 army requisition form, 75 gold, and loaded dice. Cassandra found a small key and used it to unlock the commander's drawers. Along with a collection of letters, a standard-issue gun, and some ammunition, she found one truly interesting item. An army requisition form. It would almost certainly prove useful in the future. No one would miss it here. Cassandra could hear the commander's steps in the corner. Yeah, that corridor. She hastily closed everything and leaped back into her seat. The Commander walked in, visibly upset. He explained that Hardin had gotten into trouble playing dice, but that he would overlook it as his soldiers shouldn't have engaged in gambling in the first place. Still, he said Cassandra and her crew should leave immediately and not return. Curtsy gracefully and left. Hardin's bruised countenance told tale of his gambling adventure with the soldiers. As they left, he told her he had won some money, but more importantly, he acquired a pair of loaded dice. In Cassandra's skilled hands, any dice game would now be less of a gamble. Excellent, and our precognition has returned. Now we're gonna head for the gambling den. Hardin led Cassandra to the notorious outlaw gambling den. The venue was set up in a cliffside cave in an ancient Indian pueblo. There were no lights on the outside, but Hardin pointed out 2 guards concealed against the crumbled walls, next to a narrow entrance with a thick black curtain inside. They found a wide repertoire of gambling tables, an assortment of colorful, dangerous-looking characters, and an ample supply of liquor. Cassandra sat within hearing range of a drunken prospector and eavesdropped on his story. The prospector claimed to own a map to the wreck of an old Spanish treasure ship. Hardin dismissed it as bragging, but Cassandra was interested. Cassandra probed what the man's future held. Her initial attempts were inconclusive. Cassandra felt she was already losing her lucky streak. Yeah, but we're gonna keep going. She went on. Cassandra saw the man suffers violent death. Probably suffers a violent death. It thoroughly distressed her, but she obtained no useful information. Keep going. As a searing pain pierced her brain, she saw the prospector lying dead in an old shipwreck, surrounded by piles of gold. As the vision faded, she managed to recognize a landmark. That pinpointed 3 possible locations for the wreck. She came back to reality and nearly collapsed from exhaustion. Cassandra left the premises to try to recover her strength. Okay then, we got a bunch of different stuff we could check out. Now, about 3 new locations. Now then, all will share variation of the name Shipwreck. Boy. Now, each one has events that are triggered randomly, so let's just explain what they do. Let's head for the Moldy Shipwreck first. Let's see. Take place in Lewis. In the ship Lewis. Dead bodies. Amaya Calvo. And that's actually the one we're dealing with. The air smelled of dried seaweed and mold. Let's see. This one will be loaded with gold. As soon as we enter the cargo hold, disregard Hardin's advice and choose to pack as many loot as possible in order to receive 18,000 gold and 2 cards. But one of our posse members will suffer the gunshot wound disease. Okay. Cassandra motioned to her companions to follow her inside. Descending into the cargo hold, the team found crates filled with valuables and expensive materials. Much of the treasure had decayed with time. However, a good portion of the silver and gold objects could be salvaged with a significant amount of work. Cassandra decided they needed the money. As the salvage continued, Hardin became wary. He told Cassandra that the longer they stayed there, the better the chance someone would arrive, perhaps to lay in wait and attack them once they had retrieved all of the treasure. He suggested retreating with what they had now rather than hope they could get away with everything. Cassandra dismissed Hardin's doubts, insisting they retrieve the treasure in its entirety. The attack came at dawn. Cassandra and her companions fought valiantly, but the bandits still managed to injure some of the party. Andrew Hardin was hit in the arm. The wound bled prodigiously. Worse still, the shots could be heard for miles. Cassandra cursed at the thought that the authorities might become alarmed. Despite the injury, however, the team recovered all the loot on the ship. It totaled several thousand pesos at least.
Now that Cassandra had the necessary 25,000 pesos, she was ready to conquer La Fortuna's grand tournament.
Not yet. Let's see, what's that got for him? -2 max HP. Ugh. Might have to hit up that hospital to take care of some of this. Anyways, now we're going to hit up the other ships. Because it never hurts to have more money. Lewis, blah blah blah. Let's see. 87? Cassandra doubted it would yield much. Well, let's head inside. She decides to search the wreck anyway. As he descended into the wreck, Hardin stepped on a sea urchin and had to be helped limping onto shore. A closer inspection of the wreckage yielded an ivory comb and some golden teeth, worth 100 pesos or so. Hardin suggested that there might be more valuables at the bottom of the bay, but that obtaining them would mean contending with more dangerous sea fauna. For leaving, send Paco to dive, and depending on your luck, you'll receive an additional 1,000 gold or just another numb leg affliction. Head on in, Paco. Hey, Cassandra's companion disappeared beneath the sparkling water. After a number of reconnaissance dives, the swimmer submerged for close to a minute before erupting to the surface holding a small ornate chest. Inside, Cassandra found a collection of ivory pieces. They would be worth at least 1,000 pesos to a collector. And then for the last one will be shipwreck full of dead bodies. Once you arrive at its location, choose to search the cargo hold. Then choose to heed Felicia's advice and leave. On its side in the shallows, the shipwreck looked like a beached whale. When Cassandra's team headed inside, they found it filled with the dead bodies of its crew and passengers. The air was heavy with the stench of the dead. Cassandra knew the dangers decomposing bodies presented. Search the cargo hold. The cargo holds were filled with dark, scintillating rocks. Felicia became agitated, saying it was pitch blende, the nausea-inducing, virility-draining, the natives called curse rock. She ran out, shouting for the others to do the same. Hardin shouted after Felicia that she was a superstitious coward. She shouted back that Hardin was an overbold fool. Let's leave the ship. Apparently the treasure inside isn't worth it. Then we're going to want to head to Adelante again, and then leave immediately. Upon leaving Adelante, Cassandra had an unnerving but all too familiar feeling, a powerful premonition that made her head ache for days on end. We're going to want to go through with this. Cassandra gritted her teeth and allowed the premonition to take her. Her skull blazed with pain as the vision took shape. Cassandra saw a stagecoach loaded with expensive luggage against a gorgeous mountain backdrop. Suddenly, a vulture's cry split the air. She looked up and saw several haggard birds circling overhead. As her premonition faded, she looked around for landmarks. She was positive she could pinpoint the location of the vulture's feast. Bingo! Heading for the crashed stagecoach. Following Cassandra's directions, the party soon arrived at the location of the stagecoach crash. Putrid smell of decay indicated the accident took place several days ago. A flock of vultures feasted on the well-heeled passengers. One of the many birds looked up from its feast, fixing the company with a rumory glare before slowly flapping skyward. Hardin began rummaging through the pockets of the dead, whistling casually, as though he were picking daisies. Cassandra, finding nothing of interest, was beginning to regret coming, when she spied a thin leather suitcase sitting in the dust. Opening the case, she discovered a document written in dark blue ink on the thick paper, adorned with official stamps and seals. It appeared to be the deed to a silver mine somewhere in the Rockies. Cassandra pocketed it while her companions rummaged through the rest of the spoils. From that, we'll get 1 silver mine deed, 1 Remy Borgen rifle, 2 dried meat, and 2 bottles of liquor. Now that that is done, we're going to want to return to the gambling den. Then we're going to want to join the high-stakes poker table. A group of 4 men were sat at the table playing poker with professional-like silence. Cassandra had a feeling they were practicing ahead of the La Fortuna soiree. Cassandra put on a heavy accent and introduced herself as Lydia Morozov. The 4 men were Noyan Gozoglu, a weapon manufacturer, Dr. Fabian Fay, MD, Sylvester Almain, a sawmill owner, and Pedro Ramos, an oil broker. Cassandra asked to join. The men said she was welcome if she had something to gamble. Deed to a silver mine in the American Rockies. Cassandra's contribution was accepted with contented murmurs. They dealt her in. Let's see. Then we're going to want to choose to lose on purpose to learn our adversary's tells. See, Cassandra struck up coquettish conversations while accidentally showing off her cards. Meanwhile, she keenly observed her adversaries. Cassandra lost what she had bet, but noted several tells for each of the 4 players. This knowledge could well come in handy during the big game. Then we're going to want to join a dice game. Standing by the game table, Cassandra felt weight of the dice in her hands. Replaced the dice with her gimmicked pair. Cassandra gave a discreet nod to Hardin, who loudly attracted the attention of a player sitting at another table. While all of the players' heads were turned, with a swift movement, Cassandra replaced the dice in her hand with the loaded pair. She easily won the round, earning 283 pesos. And we're going to want to keep doing this until we get... until we get kicked out. See, another 402, but she noticed one of the other players seemed upset. He wouldn't stop staring at her and grumbling. Cassandra won again, but as she reached out to pull in her chips, another player grabbed her hand, accusing Cassandra of cheating. Though she denied it and the casino had no proof, the guards escorted her from the premises and told her never to return again. And with that, we have actually come to an end for this episode of Hard West. Just ended off as we were going through the whole gambling hall thing, but hey, it is what it is. This is actually getting pretty interesting for me. But anyways, with that, we've come to an end for this episode. If you guys like what you see, please leave a like, subscribe for future content. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to get notifications when I upload, or to hit the straw poll link to vote for our next Let's Play. And please, leave a comment down below this video. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.